Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get into it with our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Michelle Williams on the podcast coming to us all the way from Tennessee, where, the weather is undoubtedly better than it is here, but we're going to get into that in a little bit. But most importantly, she's a bodybuilder and she's on here to share her health and fitness journey. And also, she's a teacher, so dealing with all this COVID stuff, I have a couple teacher friends and just the horror stories that they're telling me. But Michelle, most importantly, you're our current guest. Thank you so much for coming on.
Awesome. It's so great to be here. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I love to torture myself, so I got to get started by first asking you, what's the weather like in Tennessee today?
Okay, so it's probably like in the 40s, and the sun was shining just a little bit ago, so much so that my Staffordshire dog wanted to go lay in the sun because it was so nice.
Okay, yeah. So for anyone out there in Tennessee that's listening to that, it's like, oh my God, that's deadly cold. For us Minnesotans up there, that is short shirt, short sleeve weather for us. Basically, currently where we're at right now, I would go lay in the sun basically if I had that type of weather right now. I'd do the same thing that the dog was doing. But before I get into that, because my Winter Woes podcast, that's a podcast that I'm working on myself where it's going to be 10 hours long of me just telling the worst winter stories that I can possibly imagine. Michelle, why don't you give us your backstory on what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to you becoming a bodybuilder and where you're currently at right now?
Okay, so I'll try to keep it short and sweet. But when I was in grade school, my dad was the cross country coach, and so every day my mom worked. So every day I would ride the bus from the elementary school to the high school, and I would just watch them practice. I would just sit there, and I'd be like, "This is what am I doing with my life?" And I was probably 8 years old, and I was like, "Hey, Daddy, I want to do that too." He was like, "Oh, baby, you're too little. You might get lost or you won't be able to keep up." That's what he said. "You won't be able to keep up." Well, let's just say that I made the state news that year being in the state cross country meet. And it snowed, by the way, on that day. But and you know what runners wear, not, not warm clothes. So that was he was like, "Oh my gosh, I have a runner." And he was a runner for years and years, so I was very excited. So all the way through, kind of a sad story, but all the way through they until my junior year of college, I had to stop running because I had patella disorder in my knee, and my kneecap was it's called a floating kneecap. And so my best friend the other day was like, "You mean you didn't get to run your senior year?" And I was like, "Stop talking about it. It's not up for discussion." Um, so, um, but I did not run cross country the whole entire running career because the women's division was 1.8 for years. And I was like, "Ooh, this is easy. I can handle this." Then they upped the women's division to 3.2, and I was like, "Done, out." So my dad was also the boys track coach at the high school, and I was like, "Well, fine, I'll just do this instead." And he was like, "Well, you can't be on the boys team." And I was like, "Okay, fine." And I was a real tomboy, so I was like, "But why can't I be on the boys team?" And so the boys, he talked to the girls coach, and I got to be on the girls team. And then in 1992, we moved, and so I went to a new high school. Well, my coach was very excited to have someone that had competed in state meets and things like that, and so he would only take, this is kind of sad, but he would only take me places where I could win. Well, I was still getting better, but not as good as I could have gotten. And so when I got to college, all of a sudden I was like, What? What? I'm not the best anymore. What is this?" And so I was this little tiny fish in a great big pond where I had been a big fish in a little pond for years and years. And so, needless to say, I was always fit. In our off season, we would lift weights and we would do the leg press. Of course, that was my strength. And the boys would be like, but we're going to take some weight off." "No, you're not actually." And they would get so mad and be so jealous. And I would always beat the boys up. And it was just comical fun times. And my dad was always like, "Michelle will be fine. I could send her out to war and she would be fine." So, I always been very strong willed, physically and mentally. And so then when I got married in 2000, I graduated college, all that, moved back home, tried to get a teaching job, and they're few and far between unless you know somebody. And um, So then I I got a PE job, and that's what I went to college for, was a PE job. And so I got a PE job, and so I just so happened into a private school that did not have a gym. So if I wanted my kids to run, guess what? I had to go too. Well, because if I didn't, then I couldn't, we didn't have a gym and we were up on this big hill. And so I couldn't just be like, okay, go run, turn around when you're tired. And so I would run with them. And so I just continually was constantly fit and loved it. Well, and I had to remind the kids, hey, by the way, you have gym once a day. I'm teaching gym all day. And so I was massively fit at that time, just not big. I was still puny, scrawny, you know what runners look like. And so then whenever I had a child in 2000, and she's almost 21. And then but that's okay. In 2008 I had another one. So, I still have one more at home. And then went through divorce, terrible, bad situation. I still was not lifting weights at that time. I was still just being active, playing. I was still at the private school. Well, then my best friend said I sucked at being single, so she set me up a nice little online dating account. And I, long story short, after many losers, I moved to Knoxville, and I have my current husband now. And I just would be getting ready for work in the mornings. This is where the bodybuilding started. I would be getting ready for work in the mornings, and he would be like, "You have really nice definition in your arms," and I was like, "Okay." He was like, "But what I'm saying is you should do something about it." And I was like, "Well, okay, maybe." Well, he had a lot of gym equipment in the home. And I still had 2 very small children at home, and then I had 2 that were still in, I think, middle school at the time. He was like, "Well, you should lift." Well, part of the backstory is in 2005, I had back surgery because I fell in my kitchen, and I have scoliosis. And so fell in my kitchen and herniated a disc in my back and had surgery. And he said, "You'll never run competitively again, and you definitely cannot birth any more children." Well, I am one to defy nature. And so I did have another child. And if I wanted to run to the gym right now, I could. Um, so don't tell me I can't, because I will, just to spite you. So I started lifting weights at home in our home gym. And just so happened that I had fixed supper one evening and went back to do my workout. I was going to eat later. Well, I was doing a stiff legged deadlift with 95 pounds in my hand and no one in the room. And I only weighed about 90 pounds at the time. And all of a sudden, I felt my back do something terrible. Well, I dropped him immediately. Well, the whole family knew because I screamed. Well, I was out for probably a couple years, and I was like, "But this doesn't win," because started to feel terrible, because we've learned the hard way that motion is lotion. If my back is not moving, I feel terrible. So I got back at it as quick as I could. We got gym memberships to 3 different gyms. um, and just for convenience sake, we needed to be able to travel and be in the gym also. And we had a local gym here that doesn't obviously have a franchise. And so I started to really get interested in this. I was getting bigger. I was getting stronger. Pound for pound, I was stronger than my husband. And that doesn't happen. And so I was freakishly doing some crazy stuff. So I was like, well, I want to go watch some of these shows. My least interest in bodybuilding is looking pretty. And that's just my nature. Like, I'm not trying to have my hair fixed. I'm not trying to wear a bikini. I'm not trying to do all the stuff that a lot of women really love about the sport. I'm not trying to get up there and people cheer me on because I look sexy. That's really not it. Well, so in July of 2000, no, June of 2018, my husband was like, "I'm done taking you to these shows. They cost a lot of money. The next one we go to, either you're competing or we're not going." So I was like, "Okay," because so many times we'd gone and we were like, "Well, I look better than that. Well, I know I look better than that. She just won and I know I look better than that." So I was like, "Okay, fine." So I met a guy in the crowd whose wife had competed and won, and he taught just down the street from where we live. And I was like, "Would you coach me?" And he was like, "Of course, I would love to." Well, he was not a coach; he had just helped his wife. And so, longer story short, I ended up on stage that very same year in July. I did an 8-week prep, which is very abnormal. You usually do about 20 weeks. I did an 8-week prep and got really shredded. Well, I did not want to do bikini, but my husband and my coach were like, "No, that's where it starts." And I was like, I'm not trying to get up there like I just came off the Cotton Eye Joe dance floor." And they were like, "Okay, just do it for us this one time." Well, I placed second, third, and fourth, and that's not real common. So I did real well. Turned around a week later and went to the Knox Classic here in town and got first, 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 but didn't win the overall. But it was political. Another That's another podcast. Totally. Um, Needless to say, we're done with the NPTC Tennessee for the most part. Um, so then the judges at the Knox Classic that year said figure or bikini. If you're going to stay in bikini, you got to tone down a little bit, or you can jump up to figure and just get a little bigger and a little wider. And I was like, okay, fine, challenge accepted. So 8 weeks later, I did the Flex Lewis Classic in Murfreesboro. And I did not do as well as I wanted to do, but my coach at the time, I had released the first coach and hired a new coach for this new division. And I did do really well at the Flex Lewis the first time, and just not as I didn't win. And my philosophy is if I can't win, I don't want to play. I don't know why. It's just in my nature that, and that's probably why I didn't play a lot of team sports because I couldn't win. Like it's the whole team effort thing. So, and bodybuilding works out well for me because no one's trying to do this with me. I'm trying to do this by myself. And so, I wanted to compete at the NBC Kentucky Muscle. And my husband was like, "That is a big show, Michelle." He was like, we're going to spend that kind of money because it's a 2-day show. He said, "You're going to spend that kind of money. We might need you to be like 132 before you cut." Well, at that time, I weighed like 105. Like, I don't even have that many hours in a day to put that much food in my body. And so my coach was like, 132. I was like, "Okay, fine, challenge accepted." Well, that's been the worst challenge I've ever faced. Ever. I mean, we're talking about a food deficit. It was terrible. And so right now, standing, I weigh 125, which is massive for me because guess what? I'm still 5'1". And my husband can no longer toss me around if we get in a little scuffle. He's like, "I'm done. You win. Stop. I'm done." And so they just reset. So needless to say, in 2020, I decided that I wasn't going to compete. I was not getting on stage in a mask. We had a lot of downtime from the gym. We do have a full home gym, which if I leaned over just a little bit, you'd be able to see most of it.
Oh,
But
we can see parts of it from the side. We can see, yeah. Holy crap! Yeah,
yeah,
that is a real
I gave
setup.
up my living room, and it's a joke at my work. I gave up my living room to have a home gym. We don't have everything that I'd like to have, but during the quarantine, I actually gained more muscle than I had in 2 years because it was nice for me to be at home and it was very focused. There was no one to bother us. I mean, my children were at home, but they knew, hey, they're doing this, they're serious, we can wait an hour. So, wear whatever you want, don't shower if you don't want, you're at home. What difference does it make? Play your music, whatever music you want, as loud as you want. Well, other than my children being at home, but they got used to it. Um, so the new goal is they just set the date for the NPC Kentucky Muscle, October, it's either 16th or the 21st of 2021. So I'm going to be there. And like I said, I'm not going to play if I can't win. So I'm going there with the mindset to this to be the beginning of the road for the pro card.
And that's awesome. And I mean, you brought it up, and I love to talk about it because, like you said, you're 5'1". I'm 6'3" and 210 pounds. So we are the exact polar opposite type of person. But it brings me into my number one thing that I love to discuss is genetics, because so many people in this day and age where, I mean, they're on these social media apps and, oh my God, I want his arms, I want her abs, I want their back. People don't realize that you can only be the best version of yourself. I mean, I don't know how many times I've had to shake people down and just be like, you do not know how they got to that look. You don't know their nutrition. You don't know how hard they work. Some people just think that they can go to the gym, 5 times a week, and or that they can only train one body part, like once a week. And it's like, no, you don't know. There's so many different ways as to how these people got that look. And I mean, going off that, whenever someone first gets started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off, that they don't have to train as much. And they always have that one body part that just lags behind, that they have to train to oblivion to get it to catch up. I mean, my example is my back, just because I had jobs all throughout college of working in warehouses and lifting and loading packages into trucks. I mean, you either got a really nice back or you quit. But being 6'3", my lower body is just absolutely shot, where, I mean, I could inject pure muscle into my legs and they wouldn't gain an ounce. I mean, calves don't even get me started. That is just that is the number one genetic thing. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started taking things seriously in the gym?
Okay, well, if I lean up just a little bit, I've got some pretty massive shoulders. That is definitely and my daughter just the other day, like, made me feel bad. She was like, "Thanks for the big shoulders." And I was like, "By the way, those are not genetic. I worked really hard for those." She was like, "But you whatever." And so shoulders are a and traps. You can't really see my traps here, but if you were to look on my Instagram, you can see that my traps are unbelievable. And I have to kind of not work them because for figure traps are not what they're looking for. And when I was in bikini, I had to like shrink them. And it was they're so genetic that it was really hard to like kind of crunch my neck so that my traps didn't look so big. And then my down body part is my legs. And guess what? Bigger girls have to have big, massive legs, and my quads are growing. We're starting to see some separation. But oh my gosh, I'm pushing 700 pounds on the leg press and just now starting to see definition in my legs. So,
Well, thank God for that, because you are the first shorter person on the podcast that has had trouble growing their legs. So it makes me feel a little bit
yeah,
better myself, because I can give the excuse where, like, I have more to work with, where, like, it's like I have a longer muscle tissue that I got to grow. But no, and I love asking that question because everyone's answer is different. I mean, it
yes,
just shows that, everyone's built differently. I mean, I've had some of these freaks that are on, like, these genetic freaks where, I mean, they had like a 12 pack when they were like 5 years old. So it's just like they were just blessed, that they're gonna, put on muscle easier. And it just goes to show. But the one thing that I found that is, just, it's so funny to me right now. But I mean, we talked about this before we started recording, is that the number one myth that I love to bust is that, it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram. But there's still so many people, especially women, that have that fear that if they walk into the gym and, they even look at the dumbbells, they're going to put on 50 pounds of muscle and Hulk out. I always love to bring up the fact of, like, when I was in college, we had that gym and then we had the track above. You went up to the track, it'd be 95% women. Then you have a couple of guys like me that would do our cardio before working out up there. And then you go to the gym, there'd be, one or two girls in there, but then it would just be all guys because they have that fear. But did you ever have that fear when you were getting started working out? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time. Like, if you were to have a nickel for every time you heard that, I mean, you'd have a butler behind you right now, probably.
yes. I do hear that a lot. Um, and then the first thing, I guess they're not trying to be offensive, but they'll say like, "Well, I'm really trying to work out, but I'm not trying to look like you." Okay, stop because that's hurtful. Because I am trying to look like this, and I was never afraid of putting on too much muscle. I mean, every time I see a bodybuilder, a woman bodybuilder, I'm like, I want to look like that. I mean, I want to be bigger than I am. I want to be bigger than that. I want to be bigger than that. I want to continue to put on this size. I mean, there are some limitations putting on my coat, sometimes a little bit of a struggle because my muscles in my back get in the way. And I know that most people are gonna be like, whatever, shut up. But I mean, I'm serious. Like my husband the other day was I was like, "Honey, you missed shaving this spot on your back." And he was like, "Because I can't reach it, shut up." I mean, that's part of it. And it took us a long time to get that big where we couldn't reach things. And I was like, "Honey, how do fat people tie their shoes because I can't get down here." And he was like, "They wear slip-ons." So, I mean, adding on muscle is very different. I mean, it's not fat. It doesn't move like fat. Like I know, my mom will say, "Well, I can just like sit a different way." It doesn't work that way for us. Our muscle is stiff and firm and, things like that, so it's very different. But no, I've never been afraid of getting too big. But women do think, "Oh god, well, I don't wanna look like that." Okay, well, fine, I do.
Well, and I always say to that, like, the dumbest word I've ever heard is tone. I mean, that should just be erased from the dictionary, because when people say tone, they're just saying muscle, but it's just a different way to say it, because it's like, oh, when you mean tone, what do you mean? You mean you want to get rid of some of the fat, and then what do you think is going to be left? Do you just want to be bones, basically? Then, where you just want to be yeah, you just want to be like a skeleton, which by the way, which was funny when I say skeleton. Some of my bodybuilding friends, whenever they'd be just about to get ready to go to a show, I'd give them a hug, and you want to talk about feeling bones, basically. I mean, that's really all it is. It's just muscle and bones. But now we go to the number one thing that I would have never guessed in a million years is the hardest thing for so many of these bodybuilders that I have on the podcast. I mean, until I started this podcast, I was familiar with it, but again, since I never competed, it wasn't really into my mindset. Is that for so many of these competitors, posing is the hardest thing for them. It's harder than your nutrition. It's harder than your working out. I mean, I would have never guessed it in a million years, but now I like to compare it to being a perfect driver, where you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
Oh, MG. How funny that you asked, and my husband is in the background dying to hear what I have to say, because I hate it. Like, literally, I wish I could get up on stage and just lift weights and let people watch, because I hate, and I told you in the beginning, I'm not trying to be pretty. That's not what my goal is. I don't care what my hair looks like. I don't care what my makeup looks like. I don't care if I have fingernails 5 foot long. That's not important to me. But sex sells, unfortunately. It really does. And so posing makes the body. I've had lots of bad experiences. In the beginning, we hired someone that we thought would be great. My husband could tell you how much money later. Um, I was no better. And she coached me through bikini. I was not good. Um, she coached me through figure. I was still not good. And then I just happened to find this little girl. I call her little girl because she's younger than me, but quite a bit younger than me. It was my coach's girlfriend at the time, and we had competed together, and I had always noticed that her posing looked really good. It suited her well. And so I was like, "Will you coach me a little bit?" And she was like, "Of course." And she charges me this like so reasonable price, and I was like, "Oh wow!" And I was 10 times better immediately. My husband was like, "Look what she did in 2 times." I was like, "Yes, I know. Don't make me feel bad." And I'm still not great at it. Um, I still have so much work to do. But unfortunately, as the body changes, the posing has to change too. It can never be perfect, like you said, because as your muscles grow and as your body develops, certain things make it look better. Like one time I might turn to the left to show my best. Well, the next time the left looks terrible and the right looks better. So it really takes a lot of practice, which I terribly don't do. My husband's like, "Why don't you practice your posing?" And I'm like, "Because I hate it and I want to." And I mean, it is worse than the nutrition. Even though the nutrition's really hard for me, it is. Oh, it's awful.
Yep. Well, and especially being a figure competitor, I mean, especially for women, the number one pose that we hear of is the hardest to do is the lat spread, just because that is a hard thing to get those lats to flare. I mean, even for men, it's hard for them. But how long into your journey before you really figured out how to do it? Because for some women, it takes years.
I'm still not as great as I could be, and because of my scoliosis, one flares better
That's what
than
I was
the
gonna
other.
say. Yep.
And so my weak side, obviously, the lat is the same size, but I can't show that it's the same size. And so I'm having to compensate. I have to do, like when you were in school and you took your school pictures and the photographer was like, bend your head, and you were like, but this doesn't feel right. Well, when I'm doing my posing, it doesn't feel right, but it looks better. And because I have the sagging shoulder, it makes it worse. But getting my lats to spread and learning how to do it came from when I do lat pull downs, that's what they should look like. So when I get up there, obviously I can't put my arms up, but I have to feel that same motion.
Well, you were talking about school pictures, so I have a funny story to tell actually with that. Where it just made me laugh. Where so senior year, you get your senior photos done, so obviously that's what's going to go in the yearbook. So when you go to school to get your photos taken, it doesn't matter what you do. So I got a big like Joe Dirt mullet that I put on, And then I had like one of those like fake teeth put in and stuff like that. So I took my photo. It's still the greatest thing that I probably ever done. And I had a couple of friends that did stupid stuff like that, where one of them got like fake frosted tips on and stuff, and then one of them got like a mohawk, just because we knew that it wouldn't matter, just for the day. And it was before school started, so it was like a week before school started. You went in and you got your photo taken. So yeah, so we did that because then you could just get the hair done whenever the next time. So yeah, so that just brought up for me. But yeah, with posing, I mean, that is, so many people don't understand that that body is not meant to be in that flex of a state for that long a period of time too. I mean, we've heard stories about, it's harder than you're working out, just because you're gonna get more sore from it. So, but yeah, I mean, so many things with posing that we could get into. But you mentioned nutrition, and that is the number one thing that, I mean, so many people don't understand, because it's 90% of what happens. I mean, when it comes to the results. I mean, I'll just mention it. When we were talking to her, she was getting done eating chicken, and like she told me, I mean, it's like that is the vast majority of what you're going to be doing with this lifestyle is eating. I mean, it's not the working out. It's just so much about the nutrition. But what were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made? Because like you said, you started out this at what, like 90 pounds, and they told you they had to go up to 135 for one show. I mean, what was that like, just putting on basically half of your body weight?
Well, so my coach at the time knew how picky I was. Not only do I eat slow, but I also am very picky. I don't like oatmeal. I don't like cream of wheat. I don't like cream of rice. I mean, there's so many things that I'm like, no, actually. That's why my cut was so good the first time, because my first coach put me on a diet and I was like, I hate all this stuff. So I just won't. I mean, I literally sat at the plate and put tears on tilapia because I just couldn't. I mean, and my husband was like, "I'm going out to mow the grass because you're killing me. Just eat it." And I ate. Sometimes my food, it's not as bad as it used to be, but my food would get cold because it would take me so long. But putting on that much mass, and like I told you earlier, I wasn't able to do it in the amount of time that he gave me, and so it just didn't work. I couldn't do it. My mouth was tired. I mean, he made me a shake that had almost 1,000 calories in it, and it would take me 40 minutes to drink it. It was that, but I mean, it wasn't a bad shake. It tasted amazing, but the content and the thickness, and I mean, peanut butter, coconut oil, berries, protein powder, ice cream, milk. I mean, you name it, we threw it in there. Anything we could think of to get avocado oil. I mean, you name it, it went in there. And I did that for a while, and I was putting the weight on, but I was like, okay, so now I can't even do this. So, I mean, like, and my husband is such an amazing cook, and he's been great in doing all my meal prep and things like that. And so he has had the challenge of finding things that I could eat. And I'm so bad to get tired of things and be like, okay, I cannot for a while.
Mhm. Yep. No, and yeah, I mean, that's one of the struggles that I had too, is that I was eating so much that like you almost felt sick. I mean, it's like when you're eating that last thing, you're like, oh my God, I have to do it. And just chicken too. I mean, I would just have, like 6 chicken breasts just ready for me after I got done with my cardio after a workout. I mean, you are spending a lot on that. But going into, I mean, the number one elephant in the room is the coronavirus, because it's one thing that's impacted our lives in more ways than we could have ever imagined. I mean, good God, I would have never picked in a million years that I'd ever experienced anything like that. And being a bodybuilder, I mean, I bet it's impacted you more than most other people, and being a teacher as well, because like I said before earlier in the podcast, I have two really good friends that are teachers. They teach, one of them's kindergarten, and then another one does special ed at an elementary school, and just even their stories that they have, it's just really, really rough. But how have you been dealing with this pandemic? Because I mean, everyone has just been struggling, I think, through this.
It's not been for us. It was not bad. I was home already anyway. Our schools here in Tennessee closed the doors in March of last year, but they didn't say, okay, we're done till August of next year. They kept putting us off like 2 or 3 weeks or a month at a time. And so until the end of the school year, at the end of May, we were constantly wondering, are we going back tomorrow? Are we going back next week? And so I couldn't
Oh, so
really,
you didn't even like do any online stuff or anything for the whole end of the year?
nothing, nothing.
Wow.
Our kids here in Tennessee did not go to school from March until August, the end of August at that. So yeah, we're all real dumb here, but no, we just,
It's the South, everyone. Let's be, no, I'm just kidding.
yeah, you're about to get yourself in trouble there. It has been such a challenge, um, academically, and but as far as the gym goes, we knew what we kind of saw it coming. We thought the gyms might close, and we had bought the home gym probably a few years before that, and so we And we had picked up dumbbells here and there, and we already had a bench, and um, the Iron Master that we have is multifaceted. It has a lot of capabilities. We can do a lot of things there. We are missing some things. And my husband was even going to go online and order some more things to go with it. No, everybody was ordering that stuff. Nobody was getting it. And even when some of the gyms did open up, they required a mask, and we were just like, no. At what point of my life am I going to need my lungs the most in my day and then put a mask on it? Absolutely not. So we did not go back to the gym. We may not have even gone back till August. And so we were here at home, but it was not a downtime for us. We were more serious and more focused than we had ever been. And it was, the atmosphere is very different. I found myself between sets getting plates out for supper or, tending to the dog or folding clothes or things like that. And so sometimes that was a little bit of a distraction. But it was also nice because when I came home from the gym, I was already home. So for a female, that's a good thing because we have so much housework to do and things like that. Now my husband struggled a little bit and was like, "Oh, I can't wait till we can get back in the gym." And now that we're back in the gym full time, I do, um, I do miss being at home. And so if we are to close back down in January, we'll just keep going forward.
Well, yeah, well, like up here in Minnesota, they closed the gyms back down in November, and they're still closed right now. I think indefinitely. But like with the whole mask thing, yeah, I didn't get that either because I don't drink a gallon of water when I go to the gym. I drink a whole lake basically. So literally, I would just need to put a tube right in my mask then, where I could just have I could just be plugged in like some of those people that have like those beer dispensing helmets. But instead I just have like a water thing attached to it because yeah, that's just something. And yeah, even up here, I mean, with our schools though, I think they opened back up in April just with online learning and stuff because I had friends that were doing that. So did you talk to anyone? Like, how were those seniors in high school dealing with that? Where they're like, "Oh, I got this big final done," and then all of a sudden they're just like, "Oh, we're good now. We can just go to graduation." That must have been pretty awkward for them. Yeah.
Yeah, they just got to graduate.
Wow. Hey.
They were kinda sad, they missed a lot of
Yep.
things, like, no prom, and some schools did go back and do, like, a kind of a prom, but, they did miss out on a lot of the life events, but, oh my gosh, done. Like, "Here's your diploma."
Hey, I'd appreciate that, but yeah, like when you were talking about how you missed your senior year for running, I was like, well, geez, think about what these seniors in high school are missing too. I mean, if I and plus being a baseball player, I would have missed my entire season then basically, so that would have been a disaster too. But now that you're back in the classroom doing online stuff, how have you been able to balance that and working out? Because I mean, I from what I've heard from my teacher friends, I mean, it can be varied on how much you do per day, and just it's kind of just it's not as much of a set schedule as it was before.
It's really not, but, I don't do my classes asynchronous, so therefore, I physically have a time that I log in and a time that class lasts until, and then so my day goes the same. It goes from 8 to 3:30, and so I'm actually getting to the gym. I can choose to get to the gym even earlier than what I was getting before because when we're in the building, I had to be in the building till 3:45. Well, it's so tempting, one being female and two being teachers, to want to talk and stuff after school and get stuck there and it's like 4:30 and you're still standing there. So when you're at home, you don't have that. I have two children that are still in school. They're in middle school also. And so, other than seeing that they're okay before I leave, I can get out of here before 4 o'clock and be at the gym, 4:15 or so. And so, it has not been that end of it, as far as balancing that, has not been a challenge at all.
Well, and you mentioned your kids, and I always love to ask this question for people that have kids. It's like, what has their reaction been like since you started taking up bodybuilding, especially the older one who's been, was a little bit older when it started? How have they sort of dealt with the fact that, like, oh yeah, mom's just going to the gym again and mom's doing that because it can be it's somewhat of an adjustment for the kids too.
So, there's lots of funny stories to go with that. My daughter wants nothing to do with working out. She will buy me like leggings and things like that, but she's not like, "Mom, how can I get fit?" There's no desire there. Now she did have a boyfriend. This is a funny story. She had a boyfriend come over one time, and so this just kind of showed me that she doesn't really hate it. He said, "So Celica said that's my name, her name." She said, "Celica said that like we could get in an arm wrestling match and you probably win." And I was like, Oh, okay. That's awkward. But, just things like that. And then my son, when I first started this, he had a shirt that said, "My mom is stronger than your dad." And so he was real proud about that shirt. And of course, being a kid, he outgrew it really fast. And I asked him for another one, and now he's in middle school. He's like, no. But the kids love to his guy friends and stuff love to come around and things like that. He's 12, and they're like, "Dang, Miss Williams, you're so big," And we don't really talk about it like as a family and things like that. But and then I have stepchildren also, and so they're kind of come and go. Like they're here one week and then they're at their mom's the next week. But it's not like a big family thing, and so it's not that they don't react, but I think, oh, yesterday, this is a good one. Yesterday, my son and I went to get a new cat, and we were buying cat litter, and there was a 35-pound bucket of cat litter. And he was like, "Here, strong lady, just get this cat litter." And so, things like that, I think they appreciate it and they do respect it, but they're not like, "Hey, guys, come look at my mom."
Well, and plus, them being at that age where I remember anything that was different. I mean, I bet they hear all, the, "Oh, dude, your mom's jacked. Your mom's," especially being a guy, they probably deal with that. But a question that I bet you hear all the time, and a question that, so I actually asked this for the podcast viewers before this new year was, "What's one body part that everyone's looking forward to growing the most?" And arms won by like 10%. And I bet being a teacher, "Oh my God, Miss Williams, you have great arms," blah blah blah. So what does an arm day look like for you? Because I'm one of those people where, I mean, my arms are all right, but being that tall, I'll take any advice. So what does an arm day look like for you?
Well, for instance, today is chest, and so we are doing a workout plan called Creeping Death by John Meadows, and it is definitely creeping death for sure. But um, it has shoulders and triceps in it. And then when we do back, we also have, biceps in it. So it's not like arm day. It's not like, okay, today is arm day because your arms probably might fall off if you had just arm day or if you just went for 30 minutes. But I'm not going to the gym just for that short amount of time. So, I do a lot of shoulder work today. I'll have chest because really you hit your arms even on leg day, you're doing squats, you got to use your arms, and things like that. So I don't have, I guess there's people out there that just have arm day, maybe the uneducated, I don't know. But um, arms just come with everything. And so, we do a lot of shoulder work. And yesterday, for instance, I had machine preacher curls and rope hammer curls. So, and just those sets to vary. You might have high rep with low weight or, high weight and low reps, whatever. You just have to toss it up a lot. You can't just do the same thing all the time. And one thing that people don't realize is if it's not working, why keep doing it? You got to toss it up. You got to try different things.
Like it's always said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And so yeah, I mean, I do arm days myself just because I'm not a competitor like that. I mean, I just do it just because I and plus being a guy, I mean, we basically communicate with our arms too. So I mean, it's you have to be well equipped there. But two questions that I love to ask you, my number one bane of my existence is cardio. I mean, I hate it more than life itself. It is the I mean, I'm just not built for. Yeah, I know. I know. Being that she's a runner, I mean, she probably enjoys it. But hey, I mean, for me, I mean, only during this pandemic have I really started to take cardio seriously because there's nothing else to do. I mean, I have a nice setup downstairs, but I've gone on walks. But here's the thing: I need to watch a movie when I'm doing my cardio. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it because I just need to be interested. But I've run out of movies to watch, so I've been slacking a little bit in the cardio department. But what is your relationship with cardio like?
Um, it is definitely a love hate relationship because I don't like to be cold. So I'm definitely not going out for a run if it's the least bit cold. And my knees are not what they used to be. So, running for me sometimes can be a challenge. And getting my cardio right really takes some time. My very first cut was amazing. I set up this like I have to have a plan. I can't just be like, okay, I'm gonna do some cardio. I have to have a plan. Like I'm gonna watch a movie to halfway through. Or I have to have a very regimented plan. That's just maybe it's the teacher in me. I don't know. But I set up this course outside so much so and did such a great job with it that I wore a path in my front yard. And on my Instagram, like way a long time ago, there's a picture of that path that I wore in the yard that year. And that was my best cardio ever. I would wait until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was July. and I would take a water with me outside, and I would wear minimal clothes just for the fact that I was trying to sweat it out. And so I would go out there and I would come in and my kids would be like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Maybe later." But no, actually right now I'm not okay. And so that was my best experience with cardio. I don't really know what happened to me. Like, why did I stop? Why am I not so good at it anymore? Um, Maybe desire, maybe, back pain or knee pain. But regardless, it is a part of this. I can't not do it. And as I'm probably going to do a 20-week prep this time. And as I get closer and closer to that 20-week mark, I've got to get serious about my cardio. And my husband was like, "Okay, I know you hate it. I know you don't want to do it, but you got to do the stairs up." And he was like, "You can get so much more burnt off of you and you can shred those legs up so much better if you'll just spend 10 minutes on it." And so 10 minutes to me was so feasible. And so I've started doing that probably in the last month. I don't do it every day. And obviously, we only have two Stairmasters at our gym. And because of COVID, you can't, but they both can't be occupied at the same time. Now, if I'm on it, my husband will get up there on it beside me because, we share the same air. It's fine. And no one's going to say anything to us. But as far as like, if it's not available, I'm not waiting on it. And so my husband will do the treadmill, but I don't, it's like every runner hates the treadmill. It's boring to us. I just hate it.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me too, but also when it comes to recovery, I mean, the most important thing in recovery and the most important thing probably overall in this lifestyle is sleep. I mean, it's so undervalued by I think so many people where they don't understand that, and for anyone that says that like, oh, sleep is overrated, yeah, pull an all-nighter and then go and try to work out and then see what happens. I mean, I did that twice in college and I got half my workout done. And I was like, okay, screw this. I can't do it anymore. I had to go back and, try to get some sleep where it's just so important. But how do you try to balance your sleep with this? I mean, especially being a teacher where I know you got to get up early, where I'm a night owl. So I was in bed at 3 o'clock last night. So I got up literally about an hour before we had this podcast. So literally it's just night and day. But how do you try to maintain a nice sleep schedule and get that proper amount of sleep, being that you have to get up so early, and the fact that, I mean, when you're a bodybuilder, sleep matters 10 times more than it does for the average person?
You're exactly right. I've always been a huge, I guess, lover of sleep. I don't know. I've always been that way. I love a nap. I love to rest. I'm very much, my body really depends on that X amount of sleep. And so it is a huge challenge for me because not only do I teach all day, but then I go to the gym all evening. Then I come home and I have to get ready for the next day. Then I probably have some grades I have to put in. And so I have to make myself stop. I have to be like, okay, it's 11 o'clock and I'm getting up at 5. I have to go to bed. And so, my husband has a hard time winding down because he worked nights for a while. And so we go to bed at the same time every night together. And so it's a challenge for me. I swear I could go to bed at 8 p.m. every night and sleep till 5. But he doesn't require as much sleep. So I get less sleep. And I'm better at it than I used to be. I just have to be like, okay, I love you, but I'm done. I'm going to sleep. And so it is a balancing act for me. And I do find myself being like, okay, I have 10 minutes. I think I could fall asleep in two. And I mean, I'll nap in my car. Or I'll sit here on the couch if I've got 5 minutes, just because your body does require that recovery time so bad.
Yeah, so I'm one of those people, you can tell I'm a hyper person. I have probably napped about a dozen times in my entire life. I'm just one of those people where as soon as I get up, I just can't. Like I can fall back asleep, but as soon as like I'm up and about, I'm not sleeping the rest of the day. Where yeah, it's happened to me probably about a dozen times. It happened once during COVID that I was actually able to take a nap. Where a nap for me is literally me like laying on my back there and just closing my eyes but not falling asleep. So I'll close my eyes for like half an hour and then I'll count that as a nap. But yeah, so that's the only thing really I can do. But the last two questions that I love to ask before we wrap things up are, if someone were to walk up to you and say, Michelle, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone will go along with it, what would be one thing that you would like to see changed?
Oh gosh, posing. I don't know what it would look like, but it would be different. But if they said I could change it, I got you.
Would you do
Uh,
like more of the physique posing or the bodybuilding posing, or would you
it would
just
be,
change
I
things up?
probably wouldn't wear heels,
Well, that too, yeah.
and um, I probably wouldn't want my suit glued on.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I don't know because that's never gonna happen, so
Yeah.
I guess I have to really invest in that.
Well, there's a lot of little things that go into this sport that no one really that the general public really does not know about. But if we were to talk to you a year from today, now again, I have to say this. If we were to talk to you a year ago and you would have predicted a global pandemic and all the stuff that's gone down to go down, I would have bet my entire life savings against it. So it goes to show that we have no prediction of hindsight on this podcast because who knows, a year from today when we're talking, you could see a fire in the background, you could hear gunshots in the background. Who knows where the world's going to be at a year from today? But in an ideal world, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding? Where would you like to be at in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we were to talk a year from today?
Okay, so this is almost the end of December. So by this time next year, I will have competed in the Kentucky Muscle, and I would like to say that I would like to be getting ready for a pro show to go get my pro card after having won the the overall, because I really don't want to go try to get my pro card unless I win the overall. You can because you only have to qualify, but I feel like if I'm not good enough to win the overall, that I'm really not ready yet. And so a year from now, I'd like to be sitting here and having the same conversation with you and be like, "Hey, guess what? I'm going to get my pro card." And I think it's either November or December. I can't remember when it is, but in Miami. So that would be my goal.
Yeah, that is awesome. And we wish you nothing but the best in that. And lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
I honestly have to give my shout out to my husband because living with me is no fun. Cooking as much as he has to cook, dealing with me as I whine and complain about everything I have to do, be it food or a workout. We literally just a little while ago redefined the creeping death workout for today so that it would suit me because I'm kind of a princess. And so that would be my number one shout out. He's amazing.
Well, yeah, there should be a special recognition on this podcast for the spouses of all the competitors that we have because they go through a lot more than a lot of people would imagine. But yeah, that's so awesome. And Michelle, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey with us and talking things health and fitness. And you're one of those guests where I can guarantee everyone she'll be on a year from today and talking about how she had won her pro card. And again, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap it up?
Um, just that this isn't easy, but I recommend that if you even have that tiny inkling in your mind that you might like to try this, please do. I'm a huge advocate for fitness, obviously, but it's not just about how you look, but it's about how you feel. And I feel amazing.
Absolutely. This is so much more of a mental journey than it is a physical journey. And I love to say that because so many people, they'll look at the outside and they'll be like, oh my God, Michelle, you look amazing. But they don't realize the transformation that's also taken on in the inside as well. But again, you guys, go and give Michelle a follow on her Instagram page. I'll leave a link down below to that for people that are interested. But yeah, everyone go and check it out. And again, buyer beware. You will be inspired to get off that couch and stop eating those Twinkies and, get in shape. But again, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it.
No problem. You have a wonderful day and a Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. And to you as well, and a happy new year. And everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.